I did go to Baylor, and I did walk onto the football team. I spent a lot of time on the scout team, running the other team's offense. Given the situation, I don't know how many of you follow Baylor football or not, but you know they ran out of quarterbacks this year. They got down to the last game of the season. Their third-string quarterback went down, and they ended up playing about 5 different wide receivers at the quarterback position. They just took turns and snapped the ball and they'd run, and that's all they could do. I told somebody I would have played today. If I had been there, I probably would have played because they run out of quarterbacks. But a few years ago, I was privileged to get an alumni award. They gave out a variety of awards, and I got one for being the Speaker of the House of the State of Mississippi. So they brought us back to homecoming, and they took us down on the field during halftime, and they presented us with our awards. It was a high honor for me. I told people after that event that I spent more time on the playing surface during that award ceremony than I did the whole time I was on the football team at Baylor. Some of you may have heard my story of I guess it kind of encapsulates my career. I was at practice one day, and they put me in to run the offense, and I did. And the play opened up for me to run, and I took off. There was 80 yards of green grass in front of me. Nobody stopping. I ran as hard as I could. I got in there about 20 yards, and somebody tackled me from behind. Probably the nose guard chased me down. And I came back to the huddle, and the coach said, that's a good read. That's the way to run that play. But now look, I know you're a freshman, but when you turn that corner, don't be afraid to run hard. You take off now. I looked at him and said, Coach, I was running hard. It don't get no better than that. That's all it is. I was running so slow, he thought I was holding back. So he sent me down to the scout team, and that's where I stayed. I'm proud of Baylor. They're doing good these days, a lot better than when I was there. I appreciate the introduction, Scott, wherever you went. There you go. Was reelected Tuesday, almost unanimously. Missed it by 1 vote. I don't know how many of you saw or paid attention, but there were a series of votes that came up before we got to the speaker's vote. And if you've ever been in the House of Representatives, you know sometimes when it's a voice vote, it can get very loud in there because people yell their vote. They yell aye or they yell no. And the noes had been yelling very loudly for about 3 or 4 votes. And so when it came time to elect speaker, they said all those in favor say aye, and there was a loud aye. And then when they said no, a 5-year-old child who had been in the room listening to everybody yell no, yelled out loudly, no! So I was hopeful to get a unanimous selection, but I fell 1 vote short of that. It is a privilege to be serving in that capacity. It's the highest honor of my life, I guess, to be serving as the Speaker of the House of the State of Mississippi. And it's even more special because your colleagues elect you to that position. So I'm looking forward to another 4-year term, hopefully to do some of the great things that we've done over the last 4 years. Someone asked me, what are we going to do this next term? I said, probably much of the same. We focused very hard over the last 4 years on getting our budget in order. I don't know how many of you paid attention to that, but when we took over 4 years ago, and I say we, I'm talking about Republicans, for the first time in 136 years, the predecessors had had a practice of spending more money than we have to spend. They were spending beyond what we had. We were plugging holes in our budget with about $600 million that we didn't have to spend, what we call one-time money. This would be money that comes in one time, like BP oil spill money, Katrina recovery money. The Attorney General may sue somebody and get a settlement check. It's money that's coming in one time, and it ain't going to be there next year. And when you budget on money like that, you create an expenditure, and you're not sure where that money is going to come from next year. It's a bad practice. It's not something you should do in your personal life. It's not something you should do in your business life. It's not something that government should do. We should not spend more money than we know is coming in, the recurring dollars, so to speak. There was $600 million being spent in that manner. We not only have stopped that practice, but we have $400 million in the bank. My chairman of appropriations describes it as a $1 billion swing. Come on in, Blake. Glad you could make it. It's all right. He describes that as a $1 billion swing. We went from $600 million more than we had to $400 in the bank. That's responsible budgeting. That's responsible leadership. We have implemented what we call performance-based budgeting. I think Greg Snowden's going to talk to you a little bit more about that. This is a mechanism whereby we measure the results we get from the expenditure of your dollars. We take state dollars from you, tax dollars from you, and we spend them. Sometimes we get good results, and sometimes we don't. We want to measure that. Where are the tax dollars getting a return? And we want to shift those dollars from those areas that are not giving us a return and putting them in programs that do. Greg is going to talk more about that. That's something we've implemented over the last 4 years. We've done some improvements in education. We have passed the charter school bill, which creates educational opportunity for children in areas that may not have a quality school. It's an alternative. It's just another tool in the toolbox to be used to try to provide an educational opportunity for children. We put more money into education last year than ever in the history of our state. In any 1 year, $2.5 billion. That's more ever in the history of the state in any 1 year. Over the last 4 years, we put $9.5 billion into education. That is the largest amount over any 4-year term in the history of our state. We gave a teacher pay raise for the first time in 7 years. We implemented the third grade reading gate, which requires children, shoots for the goal of requiring children to be able to read on grade level by the time they exit to third grade. We want to look at the funding formula. I served on the school board for 11 years in Clinton. I know the frustration as a school board member to be told you're going to get X number of dollars and then you don't get it. 1 year, I think Ronnie Musgrove was the governor. Well, we had to cut budgets mid-year because the money didn't come in like we were told it was going to be. We didn't have the money we told we were going to have. And we had to make budget cuts. That's a difficult thing to do in mid-year. So we want to come forward. Part of the problem with the formula is it's been very hard to achieve. So we want to come forward with a formula that can give schools certainty as to how much money they're going to get so they can budget properly. That's the biggest complaint I get from superintendents is we don't know how much money we're going to have, so we can't plan properly. We want to be able to help them in that. So I think we're going to be looking at a new funding formula that will give them a little more certainty. Tell you one funny story. When I was on the school board, we would talk about budgets and there would be nobody at the meeting. We would talk about buying $500,000 worth of school buses. Nobody would be at the meeting. We talk about curriculum. Nobody would be at the meeting. One night we made a motion to change a cheerleader policy. 31 people showed up at the next school board meeting, worried about what we were going to do with the cheerleader. So I understand the frustrations that school boards go through and the things they're trying to accomplish. We want to make sure that education can be the best it can be in this state. You're going to see us moving forward, looking at a lot of ways, a lot of reforms that we can implement to try to make education the best it can be. That's the start of job creation. We go out and recruit companies to come to Mississippi, or we talk to many of you about expanding your operation, many of you about your businesses. Number one thing we get is educated workforce. Got to have people who can come and work in my factory and who are competent, who are trained, and who can do the job. And that's what we need to be about, creating those workers, giving them a skill, preparing them to be educated and able to do the jobs that they're called upon to do. And it all begins with a quality education at the K-12 level. So you're going to see more of the same. These are some of the things that we are going to continue over the next 4 years. I think the election results indicate that the people of the state like the direction that we've led over the last 4 years. We have faced attacks from many anti-business groups, many of whom wanted to remove the legislature from the process. We fought off those attacks. We have, I think you're going to see the most business-friendly House of Representatives you have ever seen in the history of our state. They have, as I said, we were able to fight back anti-business attacks, and we are now poised, I think, with an increase in number that we're going to see some positive things moving forward. and an increased focus on jobs and workforce development, hopefully positioning ourselves in a way to be very prosperous in the state of Mississippi. So I invite MEC to be a part of that. I invite you to come alongside of us to help us as we seek to improve education in Mississippi. I invite you to support the reforms that we bring forward. I invite you to support the job ideas we bring forward. I invite you to support the direction that we are leading. And I think together, with the help of business leaders like yourselves and the leadership of the legislature, we're going to see Mississippi become the most prosperous state that it's ever been in our history. Thank you so much for letting me be with you here today.